Hello, movie friends. Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk about the last Christopher Nolan movie that we have left on his filmography.
Anthony is so excited. Look at this kid. He is fired up.
I love Nolan.
You all know how much we love Christopher Nolan and his films, and we're so excited to finally talk about Memento, which we've barely even discussed. Just brought it up here and there. We did like the Christopher Nolan director spotlight a long time ago.
Did we?
That's like the only time it came up. Yeah.
We did a spotlight on him?
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
Yeah, back in like 2020, dude. It was like episode like 20. But Memento is an incredible film, obviously written and directed by Christopher Nolan, based on a short story by his brother Jonathan Nolan called Memento Mori. IMDb, this is an 8.4 out of 1.2 million ratings, so it is a very well-liked movie. It came out in 2000. It's the top-rated movie on IMDb user ratings list at number 54. Rotten Tomatoes, it is a 93% critic score, 94% audience score. It was nominated for Best Screenplay for Christopher Nolan, as well as Best Editing for Dodi Dorn.
Oh, that's the first. I think they're the only editor aside from Lee Smith that's worked on his movies. Because since Insomnia, he's had Lee Smith as his editor.
Gotcha.
And also, this is the first collaboration with him and Wally Pfister, who shot all of his movies up until Interstellar.
Yeah.
The last one he did was Dark Knight Rises, and then he started directing himself. So Nolan, he actually found Pfister at a film festival. His film Following was entered into the Slamdance Film Festival in LA. And then Wally Pfister shot a film that was also there, and they both chatted and liked each other's work, and then that's how they began their collaboration. He hired Pfister for this because they met at that festival.
True, but also cinematographer Mark Vargo he didn't refuse to, but he turned down an interview with Christopher Nolan to be the cinematographer on Memento, but because he didn't understand the script, he turned it down. And then Nolan went to Wally Pfister, who's actually a camera operator for Vargo in a previous film. Mm-hmm. And I think this is one of his first features to be a DP.
I think it was his first feature.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And then Wally Pfister, after they made the film, was like, I didn't understand the script either.
Wow, you passed up on a diamond man, on a gold mine.
It is a great and highly unique script. It can be confusing for a lot of people on their first viewings. And it's one of those movies that I feel like I've seen it 10 times. We just rewatched it for the first time in a while. And I was still on the edge of my seat in the third act. Like, I can't remember completely how it ends. How's it going to end? But, like, the story structure is so fascinating, and it follows this character, Leonard, who suffers from a condition where he can't form any short-term memories, and so he's trying to also solve the mystery of his murdered wife. But it's really fascinating. It's a great film noir, but also light at times. It's like Chris Nolan has great comedy as well, and you see that in this film. But the writing is phenomenal. The short story that his brother wrote was a little different. The character is actually in a mental institution, that entire short story, I believe.
I believe it was just Sammy.
Yeah.
Is in the short story.
And then like they took a road trip from Chicago where they moved to when they were like teenagers to Los Angeles.
So Jonathan was a kid and Nolan was and Chris was a teenager when they moved from the UK to Chicago. And that's why Jonathan Nolan has an American accent and Christopher Nolan has an English accent because he's like 10 years older than him.
Something like that. And so on the drive to Los Angeles together, Jonathan Nolan basically told him his idea for the story, and they kind of worked out the screenplay together just verbally, and then Nolan wrote the screenplay. But the screenplay and book are kind of different, and also the screenplay was published after the movie came out in GQ magazine.
The story was published
so
after.
Technically it's not an adaptation because it hadn't been published yet, but it really, the short stories, the basis of the film. And also the nonlinear storytelling is so incredibly well written and well done because we have two storylines going on at the same time. We have a black and white storyline that's going forwards through time, as well as a colored storyline that's going backwards through time until the two storylines finally meet around the third act of the film to finish up the movie.
And the reason for this structure is actually completely vital to the story because this is just a very typical run-of-the-mill film noir murder mystery. We've seen this so many times, but the way he shows the story and plays out each scene, no one had ever done it like this before and still hasn't really been done like this, watching a film in reverse and playing the story out from the first scene as the last scene and the last scene as the first scene. It's still in a league of its own in terms of like actually trying to do it. And it's just so much to wrap your head around. Like it's impressive that he had it all in his head and was able to film it and make it make sense. But he didn't just do it to just be like, oh, I'm going to do a movie in reverse. No one's ever done this
and
before.
Forwards at the same time.
Everyone's going to be like, whoa. It wasn't just a gimmick. It's actually vital to the story. And it really, the reason for it is because it makes the audience understand Leonard's mind, understand Leonard's perspective, where when you're watching a scene in this movie, what you watch you don't know what's gonna, you know what came after it because you're like, so say the first scene we watch is the final scene of the movie. We don't know what's gonna happen next, and so every time a scene starts, we have no idea where it's going. We have no idea what's gonna happen, and we have nothing to set up this scene. So in a normal movie, you see the scenes that lead up to a certain scene, but in this film, we don't see the scenes that lead up to each scene. So each scene for the audience is like a scene for Leonard, where he has no idea how he got here, what he's doing here. The audience is in the same shoes as the character. And in a lot of ways, it was really the only way to tell the story to make it feel like you know and understand what Leonard's going through. If it was just a traditional chronologically ordered scene structure for the screenplay, we would have understood, yeah, he has short-term memory loss, but we wouldn't have felt it. We wouldn't have been in his shoes. We wouldn't have known what it was like. But because every scene that starts, we have no idea what came before it, we feel like Leonard.
Exactly. Just like Leonard, every time he goes into a room, a bar, a hotel, he's like, have I been here before? Who is this person? Do I know them? Let me check my photos. And that's why the photographs are such a great way to give subjective information to the audience, because this whole entire film, it's like this balance between subjectivity and objectivity, facts versus memories, as well as facts are being
not
altered.
More it's notes versus memories.
Yeah,
so.
but facts
Yeah.
that are subjective as well. So the notes and facts themselves can be subjective because they are made by Leonard at specific times when he has to basically depend on people to be honest with him. And it's a really complex character because he trusts people so much, like Natalie or someone, or even Teddy he's very skeptical of, but he's trusting other people to give him correct information and not take advantage of his handicap, which is really interesting to put that much trust in people, which is how the basis of your life operates off these notes.
Yeah, and I would say he puts trust in his notes more than he does in people, because if a note says this person is someone you can trust, he'll follow that.
If he writes in all caps.
Yeah. And then, so a great example, I'm glad you said that, is when Teddy tells him to write down that note, which he does about Natalie, and Leonard's like, I don't like what you're saying. He writes it in lowercase in like this angled font, which shows that in his mind subconsciously, Leonard is already telling him, his future self, this isn't trustworthy information. And then we later, because we start the movie seeing this exact photo with this text crossed out, we don't know what it says. Then we finally reveal that he didn't want to listen to what Teddy was saying, even though Teddy was right and he was telling him the truth. He didn't like what he was hearing. And so Leonard himself can be extremely flawed, and he can be subjective in what he wants to hear. And in a lot of ways, he doesn't want to hear things that he doesn't want to hear things that don't support his direction of where he wants to go. So that's an example of the note-taking, which he relies so heavily on. It's a very flawed system in a lot of ways, and Teddy points that out multiple times in the film.
Also, just to keep going on that, Leonard's a very ironic character, and we'll get to the twists and everything in a little bit, because I'm sure some people still don't fully understand the movie, and maybe they're confused about who Sammy Jenkins is. But in addition to facts, there's this great concept of basically facts versus memories. And Leonard, his former job before his accident, was insurance claims investigator. He investigated people who took out insurance claims, insurance policies on conditions that they had, disabilities they had, whether they got it from work or something, to investigate whether they were faking it, or whether they needed the money actually, or whether there was some kind of con going on. And he was investigating this person, Sammy Jenkins. And he goes on and on multiple times about comparing memories versus facts, and how memories are flawed, their interpretations. He says cops don't take a testimony from memories and just make up a bunch of memories to go investigate a crime. They take facts, they make notes, just like Leonard does. He's created the system for himself to be able to survive and continue this investigation to try to discover who killed his wife and find that person and murder them. He says facts are undeniable, but Leonard's basing his entire life off of memories of his wife, which then become warped and changed and are unreliable, because he forgets the fact that, spoilers coming abound, that he was actually the person whose wife had diabetes. He's basically Sammy Jenkins. He was Sammy Jenkins. He created Leonard because he destroyed Sammy Jenkins during this whole life he created after his wife survived their attack. He got his head injury, and then he killed his wife because she wanted to test the insulin thing out on him, whether or not he was actually faking or not, whether he still loved her or knew what was going on. So he created Leonard after this. So his entire life based on facts, because he says memories are unreliable, is so ironic because all of his memories are unreliable.
Another Nolan dead wife.
It's the start of the trend.
Yet another one.
The start of the trend. Always a dead wife.
But it's a really ingenious concept and a terrific twist because we fully believe in Leonard's past because he's talking to who I would believe is Teddy on the phone.
Yeah, definitely
he keeps
Teddy.
calling him officer. It's got to be Teddy.
And then meets him in the lobby.
Yeah, because this is like the establishing of the relationship because Teddy was investigating his wife's death. So Teddy was the investigator, and Leonard was never investigating Sammy Jenkins' death. It was Teddy investigating Leonard's wife's death. And so it was so terrific to basically completely fool the audience because it's not just like, oh, I'm tricking you with the twist. Leonard has fooled himself, and Leonard has made himself believe this new reality. Either it could have been the injury messed up his memories, or he's just blocked out the memories and modified them to make himself continue moving on and to give himself purpose and motivation for living his life, because this life that he's living is almost nearly impossible, but he's only able to do it because of the skills he learned from his experience in the past. So I think that it was so great to have this twist that came out of nowhere because you wholeheartedly believe in it that Sammy Jenkins was a real person and not Leonard, because Leonard believes that so wholeheartedly.
And the way he talks about Sammy Jenkins, he clearly looked down upon him. And, when we go back through his warped memories of him being the investigator investigating Sammy when someone was investigating him, obviously, at different points in his life, he talks about how Sammy had that look of recognition for him every time he knocked on the door, even though he'd met him multiple times. But he said that even though Sammy couldn't remember anything, he saw like a look of recognition, which he finally realizes later on that he only does that because he's being polite. He's trying to like get a bump up in the relationship. And like when you ever have an interaction with somebody, you kind of like, oh, do I know this person? Let me be polite. So that's always what he was referencing. But there's a great little single frame of Leonard in Sammy's seat after the death of his wife when he's in the mental institution. And Sammy's just sitting in the chair, just looking at all the people passing by, seeing if he knows anybody. And there's a single frame of Leonard in the chair where Sammy is to prove that Leonard was Sammy Jenkins and he destroyed Sammy Jenkins. And Teddy says twice in this film, like, that used to be you. You used to be Leonard, but now you're somebody else. That's not who you are anymore. When Leonard talks about himself, I'm from San Francisco. I was an insurance claim investigator. You're not that person anymore. You've created something else. You are a villain now, and you're kind of just creating this mystery over and over again and putting yourself in this endless loop to solve a crime that you already solved.
Yeah, you can see there's a lot of inspiration he had with both David Fincher and I would say with Tarantino. So Tarantino with the story structure. In the filming style, he uses the anamorphic lenses, the same film stock, and a lot of Steadicam work in this film. So clearly inspired by Pulp Fiction.
Reservoir Dogs too.
Yeah,
the
Reservoir
low budget
Dogs,
filmmaking, everything.
And then also with Fincher with the editing. So that edit of just putting Sammy in the hospital room for just a frame. Obviously, Fincher did that a bunch in Fight Club. So you can see the inspirations he had from both those filmmakers. Also the memories. The frames of a memory that Fincher used in Seven at the finale. Also, just great editing techniques. So you can see the inspiration he had from those two great filmmakers in their work in the 90s and how influential it was for him. But there might be something that can be a little confusing for audiences that is explained quite a bit in the film, but it could go over someone's head. So if Leonard can't remember anything, how does he know that he has to take pictures of things? How does he know that he has to write notes down? Because every time he wakes up, he discovers like all these tattoos. And to him, there's just like a camera there and there's just like pens there. How does he know this system? Like, because every hour or so, it's roughly maybe 30 minutes to an hour, or sometimes it adjusts.
It depends on how focused he is.
Yeah.
If he's very focused, he can remember something a little longer.
Yeah, just like Sammy with the insulin shot.
And it also seems like a bang triggers him to forget his memories as well.
Yeah, as well, exactly. So how does he know what to take photos of people? It's not like he was taking photos of people before he lost his memory. What happens is he explains multiple times, repetition and routine make my life possible. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Eventually, he's done this enough times where it's just become just like drinking water or eating food or taking a shower. taking photos of people has become such a repetitive and routinely thing in his life that he doesn't even think about doing it. It just becomes part of his behavior as a human being under the surface subconsciously. So that's why, even though he can't remember what he's doing, that's why he knows to take pictures of people. That's why he knows to write down notes that seem important for situations because of repetition and routine.
Now let's talk about exactly the incident that caused Leonard to lose his wife and his memory. So he had no mental health issues, no mental disabilities until the night him and his wife were attacked. Now his wife did have diabetes, and was the person who was giving her insulin every day for her treatments. And then in the middle of the night one time, they were attacked. The people who attacked her and them they are described as two junkies that were strung out that didn't even know that she lived with somebody else. They thought she lived alone. And they attacked her and in the bathroom, and he managed to come in. He had a gun. He killed one of the attackers, but there were two assailants. One of them pushed him into that mirror, gave him the head injury. He no longer can make short-term memories. Now, the condition that Leonard suffers from is called, I got it right here. It's called anterograde amnesia, the inability to form new memories after damage to the hippocampus. Now, obviously Leonard was attacked by somebody else, and because he suffered a brain injury and no longer could form short-term memories, none of the police would believe him that there was a second assailant. And also because he could no longer form memories, he forgot that his wife survived the incident. She survived the entire incident, and they lived a somewhat normal life until his condition.
They lived the Sammy Jenkins life.
The Sammy Jenkins life with the wife who wanted her husband back, and she just needed an answer. And the insurance claim investigator was investigating Leonard until the point where his wife couldn't take it anymore and gave him the final test of the insulin, where if he really doesn't have any memory anymore and he can't form new memories, I'm going to test him with the insulin every 15 minutes, say I need a new shot, and obviously she goes into a coma from an overdose and never wakes up. So Leonard is Sammy Jenkins. That's why he destroys Sammy Jenkins, and also he doesn't remember his wife surviving because he could no longer form short-term memories. And Teddy was one of the cops assigned to this case. He wanted to help Leonard find justice, and eventually they found the guy. That's that Polaroid, the bloodied Polaroid, where he's so happy he's pointing to his heart covered in blood. That was when they killed John G., the real assailant, who's just some guy. It was not this big conspiracy against Leonard or his wife or anything like that. And since that, obviously Teddy and other people have been taking advantage of Leonard's condition to help them solve problems for themselves. Teddy's getting a score from this guy, Jimmy G. It all fits. And so Teddy is using Leonard to make money and solve crimes and stuff like that because he's a crooked cop, you could say. And then Natalie's taking advantage of him. So the entire situation with Jimmy G, the bartender, the drugs, everything like that, the $200,000, that's all unrelated to the killing of the vengeance that they already achieved. And Teddy tells him, I thought you would remember. We did it. We found the guy.
I thought it would stick.
It didn't stick. You didn't remember. So I figured, why not just keep this going? Why not give you purpose in life? Because Leonard needs something to do with his life in terms of purpose. Otherwise, he doesn't see his life worth living.
And the finale of the film, what's interesting about the structure of the story is, so in a script you have a big act which happens in the first act, big event which happens in the first act, which sets the story into motion. Some big thing happens, and then the life of the lead character changes, and they go on a journey because of the big event and catalyst. And then you have the climax.
So Fight Club, the apartment explosion is the example.
Big event. Matrix, the taking the red pill is the big event. And then you go on this journey. And then there's the climax near the end of the third act, which is the finale, and then the resolution happens after the climax. In this film, it's reversed, but also it works both ways. So the beginning of this film is the climax of the movie when he kills Teddy. The climax is the big event. So the big event is when Teddy reveals that we already killed the guy. You don't even know who you are. This is the finale of the film, but technically the beginning of the story. But it's structured to be the climax. And then the big event was the climax of the story, but it's structured as the big event.
And also, the opening of the film, not only is it the climax and ending of the story, really, but it's also a reversal. So the opening's really brilliant, where it's just the Polaroid photo that's reversed. This is kind of like this opening shot and opening scene. It looks like it's from Tenet. This is clearly, obviously, when Nolan made
And then the gun pistol.
when Nolan made his first film following, that's told nonlinear story structure, so he's starting to play with time. But Memento, he really got interested in playing with time, and opening a movie with a reverse like this is really fascinating. I've never really seen anything like this. Still to this day, nothing really compares to it. It seems like a scene from Tenet, the bullet moving off the ground into the chamber of the gun, which is really fascinating, just like Tenet. So many times we saw that in that movie. And then the Polaroid photo becoming undeveloped as he's shaking it, and it's reversed because anyone who's a Gen Zer, these cameras are called Polaroid cameras. They were very common for a couple decades. Dad had so many of them.
We took a lot of Polaroid photos.
But they're fun because you could write notes on them. Now it's kind of like a trendy thing to do.
It's
like
a nostalgia thing.
Now people get Polaroid cameras to take photos of with their smartphone. They take a photo of their Polaroid photo.
It's true. It's true.
And they'll tack it to their walls and stuff like that. But this is how a lot of people use cameras, is just to for family events or whatever. But you could write notes on them, which is really cool. And just to reverse that with the development of the film shows also how he can no longer form memories. That's a great metaphor for Leonard's mind. He can, even though he can take a photo or make a memory, it's eventually going to fade away, just like the photo is fading away as it's reverse developing, going back into the camera. It's a really great metaphor for the entire film. And just like we say all the time with Nolan movies, he gives you the rules for his movies within the first act, within sometimes 10
minutes.
He's telling you the rules of how the movie's going to play out. We talked about this in depth with The Prestige, with Inception,
with Tenet.
Interstellar, Tenet for sure. Within 5 minutes, just like The Prestige, the opening scene, he's explaining the movie, how it works.
Michael Caine. And what's interesting about this film is it's a very LA movie, especially in the Valley where we used to live. Like Studio City, North Hollywood, Van Nuys. It's definitely all those neighborhoods.
Seems like all over Van Nuys.
Yeah, and it just feels really cool because he likes to set his movies in LA. In Inception, there's a lot of stuff happening in LA because I think he lived there for so long, and also for
Probably
this
still lives here.
Yeah, for shooting on a low budget. This is really interesting for him because obviously following he just made with him and his friends, super, super low budget. But this was still relatively low budget. It's interesting to see his filmmaking technique and his storytelling techniques with such a minimal amount of money because now we're used to Nolan having massive budgets. Insomnia was 40 mil, so that was a big step up for a budget. And then Batman Begins, he probably got $150.
This was $9 million and he made $40 million at the box office.
Wow, it's very successful. That's the thing with Nolan. All of his movies are profitable. Every single one. They've all made money. And some of them have made boatloads of money. But this 40 mil return on a $9 million investment plus DVD sales are probably terrific for this film, as well as the rentals in the early 2000s. It probably was an extremely profitable film. But it's interesting to see his filmmaking on such a small scale and such a minimalist approach to, sets. It's lots of motel rooms, lots of parking lots, lots of just random streets. He was making use of cheap environments and locations, but still crafting a really interesting story. Like now his sets are gorgeous and he has some of the best production designers, cinematographers, costumers working on his movies, but it still feels like a Nolan movie, especially with the film stock and lenses he used in this. They still look like a lot of his other movies, his latter films, except for The Prestige, which is, I think, because the period setting really changes things, but it still feels like a Nolan movie, even because when you look at Wes Anderson, his early films, they're not the same as his films now. And when he developed his final style, his last 5 movies are a lot different looking and feeling than his first couple movies when he was still trying to find his voice. There were still hints there, but it wasn't fully formed Wes Anderson. But I feel like a lot of Nolan's tendencies and his style as a filmmaker are definitely seen in this. Obviously, he couldn't do everything he wanted to do because of budget constraints, but you could still see, this is definitely, it looks like a Nolan movie.
Yeah, and how do you make an entire movie about hotel rooms?
Yeah, so many hotel rooms. Yeah.
How do you make it interesting with nonlinear story structure, with having a storyline in black and white going forwards and a colored story going backwards? It works. And we spend an hour of this movie in hotel rooms probably. Something like that, at least an hour, 45-minute runtime. More than half the movie is inside motel rooms, in hotel rooms, of a narrator speaking to himself. And Leonard's an unreliable narrator, which makes him so fascinating. But I love the approach where, of course, the colored one's going backwards in time, and the black and white's going forwards until it converges. And the way he shot it and filmed it and wrote the script is Leonard on the phone. It's kind of like a documentary or interview feel and aesthetic and vibe in terms of we're getting great exposition, but it's not forced exposition down our throat. It's kind of like an interview format. It's kind of like when he played with that in Interstellar. With the opening of that movie is like an interview with all these elderly people. You're like, who are these old people? Like, I was like, is this a movie or a documentary? Are we actually like around space, like that deep in space? But that's what it feels like when Leonard's on the phone, obviously talking to Teddy the whole time. It feels like an interview for the audience to understand the rules of how Leonard lives his life, what happened to him, and how he's kind of figuring things out. But also at the same time, he's probably done this 5 times with Teddy.
Yeah, because Teddy goes, let's go look in the basement. Like, how many bodies are in the basement?
We found plenty of John G's, James G's. Like, they've probably done this 5-6 times. It's been years that they've been doing this, and Teddy's taking advantage of him. But I think Teddy just, like, he likes him so much, and he feels so bad for him that he needs to give Leonard purpose.
I would say to get his wife's killer initially, but now he's just
now that was the first time.
Yeah.
Now it's for purpose.
Now Leonard's a money-making machine for him.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
he's just killing drug dealers for him who have huge scores on them, and then
having Leonard do all the investigating.
Exactly. So he does all the work for him, doesn't remember what he did, and I really like the transition he made from when the black and white storyline and the color storyline converge, and he makes the transition from black and white to color, and then we learn, oh shoot, now this is happening in real time. It's a great little thing. Reminds me of Tarantino with Kill Bill, that when he did that with Beatrix blinking her eye during the Crazy 88s fight. It's a really great technique that's pretty rarely used, like, ever, but it works really well, and it worked perfectly in that moment.
In this film, it's highly subjective. You know, it's a first person subjective experience. Our narrator is experiencing everything subjectively, whether it's a memory or whether it's what he thinks are facts, with his photographs, with his notes, with his tattoos. Many of his tattoos are incorrect information. For example, at the end of the film, he decides to make Teddy his new John G. You're a John G. You can be my John G. He makes the tattoo fact number 6, license plate. It's Teddy's license plate. But there's one little loophole that I saw in this movie on the rewatch is like, how does he know it's number 6? How does he know it's tattoo fact number 6?
It's 5.
Or no, it's whatever the number is. How does he know?
Because he already has up to 4 in his body?
No, but he's got short-term memory.
But it's on his body, though.
Well, he's not looking at it. He looked at it in the morning. I'm just saying it's like a little tiny loophole.
Well, get out of here, man. I'm just kidding.
One little
No,
thing.
but I will say the loophole there is he writes the I and the 1 the same. Because in the license plate, there's an I and there's also a 1, but he writes them with just one straight line. So how does he know which is which?
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing, one little thing.
And what I love so much about the storytelling, and it works so well, so many filmmakers are afraid to do this these days, I think, because many productions, many studios, they're just telling us information all the time. They're just telling us, not showing us. And they're afraid to refuse the audience information. They don't want to challenge us like movies like this, which is why this is number 50 all time on IMDb user
And
rate.
so rewatched, probably, yeah.
It's challenging the audience every single time you watch it, whether you've seen it 1 time or 10 times. Every time you watch it, you're still being challenged. Because Christopher Nolan, just like Leonard being denied information, we're being denied information. The entire film, we're being denied information just like Leonard. We're being denied who characters are, whether Leonard knows them, whether he's been at places, whether he knows the guy that runs the hotel at the lobby or anything like that. So the fact that we're being denied all this information forces us to pay attention, forces us to really engage with the film and the characters and the storytelling and really listen to the dialogue. And it's a great mystery. And I think that I wish more films did this. A lot of filmmakers still do. I mean, we have great filmmakers out there, but the average film, I feel like 20 years ago, challenged the audiences much more than they do now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it makes you feel like you have short-term memory when you watch the movie.
I was like watching, I'm like, hold on, wait,
what happened?
What exactly?
Yeah.
I've seen it 10 times.
But once you just give into it and stop like questioning it, you can just let it happen and play out. All of your questions will be answered.
Now, let's go to our intermission, and then there's still so much more to talk about with Memento.
So much more. We didn't even get into the Matrix reunion.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about the cast yet. We only brought up Chris Nolan. Now, before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost podcast is to share us with your family and friends who love movies as well. Tell them about the show. Send them the Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever. Send them stuff. All of it. Everything. Also, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Every patron has access to a weekly bonus episode that only patrons can see. We have $2, $5, $10, $25, and $100 tier patron tiers, so you can support us at any level you want. $10, $25, and $100 tier patrons get access to our Discord, where we interact with you all the time. We have watch parties on there. It's such a huge, fun community. Everyone is just become friends on there. It's really nice.
Great.
It's really
beautiful.
Nice. It's really great. $25, $100 tier patrons get a custom episode. You pick the topic. We do it for you. And then $100 tier patrons, you are the chosen ones. You also get your own personal watch party. You get to become an executive producer at the end of every main episode. You will hear your name. And also, after 3 months in that tier, you get to come on the show for a fun guest segment. We've done it a bunch of times. It's a blast.
Great time.
Patreon allows us to do the show full time. Thank you so much for the support around the world. It keeps the lights on. Can't thank you enough.
This episode is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com. Use our promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today. Movieposters.com has a huge selection of all sorts of movies and TV shows in their poster library, as well as options for backlighting, framing for all of your poster needs. We have a bunch of these posters all over our set and in our home. They are high-quality prints, super affordable, especially with our discount code. They also do free movie poster giveaways with our fans. We just gave one to a fan, a Rogue One poster. It's being sent to the Philippines now.
Philippines is incredible, yeah.
Yeah, and we do this every bi-monthly, so we have a great partnership with this company. We love movieposters.com. The best place to get your posters online. Use our promo code Raiders10 to make sure you get 10% off your order today.
All right, let's head into our intermission.
Let's do it.
You ready, Anthony? I got a pretty easy one, but I think it might stump some people. But it's a great one. I couldn't resist, so I had to do it. Ready?
Ready.
Hold on, let me try to do an impression. Let me get my voice ready. Where is it? Where is my? Oh, I'm on yours. Hold on.
Oh, did you just look at my?
I did not read anything. I swear.
You just saw my whole intermission, guys.
I swear to God.
You just saw the whole thing.
I'm gonna get.
I only put Ant on my profile document.
Anyways,
it says Ant.
Ready? Here we go. I know I've made some very poor decisions.
Great job.
All right. I know I've made some very poor decisions recently, but I can give you my complete assurance that my work will be back to normal. I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission, and I still want to help you.
Hal.
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah.
Space Odyssey.
Good one.
What are you doing?
What are you doing, Kyle? Okay, here's my quote. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he did not exist. And like that, he is gone.
He's gone. Rah. Kaiser Soze. It's the usual suspects.
Great job. Good one.
It's a great quote. All right, guess this movie release year, Anthony and listeners. From Russia with Love.
1962.
63. Dr. No was 1962.
I'm such an idiot.
You are. I think Dr. No was 62. I hope so. This is the first one, but sounds right.
The Graduate.
67.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Right on the money.
Let's
2
go.
for 2.
Let's go.
2
I
for
didn't even
2.
need 19. Actually, I was wrong. It's not the year 67. It's 1967.
What is 1967?
Exactly. Movie pop quiz time. All right. Catherine Bigelow has made, I believe, 10 feature-length films in her career, as well as documentaries and shorts and videos and stuff like that. Who starred in her first feature-length film, The Loveless, which came out in 1981?
The Loveless. Bill Paxton.
You have any idea how much I've sacrificed? Willem Dafoe.
Just keep your mouth shut about stuff you understand. If I'm lucky, I'll become half of what he is.
I know, you're an important man. I understand. Harry.
Even when he was that young, his voice was still the same.
And he looked like he was 60.
Yeah.
He's just one of those guys who just
Yeah.
always looked middle-aged.
When he was in his early 20s, he still had this like crazy voice.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He has an amazing voice.
Yeah,
He
'cause it came out in
always has.
1981. That's a long time ago. He's probably about like 65 years old, something like that.
Yeah, he's up there. He's up there. He's making a Yorgos Lanthimos film right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I want to see his new one, Inside. It looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks great. Okay. Here's my quiz question. Who wrote The Usual Suspects?
Oh, I know this.
Does he? Does he
Who
really?
the hell was it?
We'll see.
Who the hell was it?
You really like this writer?
He turned into a director too, right?
Possibly. Possibly not.
God damn it.
Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself.
Oh man, I'm gonna feel so dumb when I don't get it right. Let's see.
I don't think he's got it. Just give up.
Crap. I feel like because Singer didn't write it.
Nope.
It's not Shane Black.
No.
It's not.
It's not a comedy. It's not set in Christmas. Just give up.
I give up.
Tom Cruise is a new guy.
Macquarie.
Macquarie wrote
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He wrote a bunch of films before he started making
Yeah.
movies.
God damn it. All right, on this day in film history, today is November 24th. It's also Thanksgiving in America.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
So I hope you're enjoying your time with your loved ones and away from work and school. That's always the best. In 1933, Fred Astaire's first film, Dancing Lady, is released. I believe that also Tom Holland's about to be in a movie about Fred Astaire. Very cool. 1948, Bicycle Thieves is released. 1979, Salem's Lot, the miniseries, wraps up in the United States. They're making a movie about that for 2023, which should be cool. Starring the Bob from Top Gun Maverick. He's going to be one of the lead actors in it. Can't remember his name. Sorry, guy. I'm sure he's a huge fan.
Huge fan.
1990, unsubscribed.
Unsubscribed. Whatever his name
He
is.
used to be a huge fan. In 1993, Mrs. Doubtfire is released. In 1999, Toy Story 2 is released. In 2010, Tangled and Burlesque are released. In 2017, Call Me By Your Name is released.
Every time.
In 2021, Encanto, True Story, and House of Gucci are released. Happy birthday to Stephen Merchant, Colin Hanks, and Katherine Heigl.
I got some unsubscribes.
Let's go. Who we got?
Evan Smith wrote, I guess you could say Manscaped unsubscribed.
Yeah, we got dropped. Manscaped unsubscribed from the show. Sorry, we didn't hit the return on investment.
That was a good one.
It's okay. We were locked in for 2.5 years.
Yeah, they helped us for a long time.
We still love Manscaped.
They were very supportive of our show.
Yeah. We got lots of body wash from them.
I still, honestly, I love their stuff. I still use it. Crash a Coyote wrote, wait, you're telling me Wakanda is CGI and not real? Unsubscribed!
Unsubscribed! A lot of people think it's a real place, or used to think it was a real place.
Really?
Like there's I can't remember where it was, but it was a great video there. Like Google search results for like Wakanda vacation homes was like at a huge search rating back when Black
first
Panther,
one?
when it first came out, a lot of people thought it was a real country.
Oh, wow.
So they were like, it
looks really nice
It was
there.
like Wakanda Airbnb. It was like a really highly searced item on Google for like a whole year.
That's great.
And then they're like, oh wait, it's not a real country. Okay, moving on. Stream recommendation from me today. Tenet on HBO Max. Revisit it. It's so much better than people say.
And watch our episode on it because we explained it for an hour and a half, and you will not be confused after our episode.
I don't
love it.
understand the hate for Tenet. I really don't.
I think just some people are sick of they just think of the being confusing on purpose as a gimmick thing, and that's how they look at it. Oh, he's just trying to be confusing just to fuck with us. No, it all makes sense in the way he crafts the storytelling. So I love it too. I think it's amazing. My streaming recommendation is Florence Pugh's new film, The Wonder, on Netflix. It's actually a really good movie. I watched it last night. It's about, she plays a nurse in the 1800s in Scotland, and she goes to visit this village where this young girl has not eaten for 4 months straight and is still alive. And she's there to help investigate and figure out what exactly is going on. She's great in it.
Is it based on a true story?
No.
Gotcha.
It's
Yeah.
it's
I keep
fiction.
seeing stills of it online, and people say it looks
Florence is great. She has this great like Northern English accent. It's very good.
She is so good. She already rapped Dune. I was reading an interview with like Timmy the other day. She rapped Dune. He said she's incredible in it. She doesn't have a huge role in Dune Part 2, but she's an important character going forward. But no, just saying that she's on top of it.
I thought you were going to go into her character.
No.
Well, you say Florence is playing.
Anyways, she plays Princess Ireland, the daughter of the Padishah Emperor.
That's what I was expecting.
Because she's been on fire the last couple of years, man, and I think she's just the actress of her generation, and she's turning into that right now. She's up there. It's like her and Zendaya are just so talented and just on top of the world. They can do anything.
She's an extremely talented lady.
And very talented lady. All right, that wraps our intermission. Let's get back into Memento and actually talk about people other than Christopher Nolan for a little bit.
We got the Matrix crew here.
Yeah, for sure.
We got Carrie-Anne Moss and Joe Pantoliano, who are terrific. And Carrie-Anne Moss was cast in the film, and she recommended Pantoliano after working with him, and they got along really well on Matrix. And she recommended him to Nolan and producer Jennifer Todd. And I think what I read, Nolan was unsure about him playing this role because he's basically plays like villainous-y antagonists.
Yeah.
But he ended up doing a really good job of making it feel like a really fleshed out character, not two-dimensional.
He's a great actor. He's so good in The Sopranos. What year was he, like the seasons he was in The Sopranos?
It's like 3 and 4.
So was that the late 90s, right? Or the early 2000s? Early 2000s.
Yeah.
So that was after this. But I think he's awesome in The Sopranos, but he's great in this movie. He's really incredible.
Also in Daredevil, he's great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's the journalist, right? Yeah. Iconic performance.
Oh, my God.
Can never forget him as the journalist. But Teddy's a very ambiguous character, and he brought that to the table of whether or not Leonard trusts him and the audience trusts him, because we're kind of in Leonard's shoes the entire time about how to feel about characters. You know, at first you trust Natalie until we find out that she's taking advantage of him just like Teddy's taking advantage of him. But Teddy, you can tell actually cares about Leonard and doesn't want anything bad to happen to Leonard and doesn't want to get arrested for killing random people and drug dealers, because Natalie starts to use him kind of like Teddy was using him at the same time. And so he's being used to...
He gets him out of that problem in the hotel room.
Yeah, and the Dodd situation as well. So Teddy's a friend, but you don't know that until the end of the movie. And even after Leonard learns all this information that Teddy is his only friend and has helped him and helped him find the real John G and kill him, he still doesn't care, because he's pissed off and he's subjective about all the information he's getting, even if it's true fact. He's getting the fact. He's getting factual information from Teddy. And even though he
gets the photo.
He's saying memories are unreliable. He's now making facts unreliable and subjective on purpose to create a mystery for himself to solve.
Yeah, and because Teddy, you're like, when you're watching this movie for the first time, you're like, why is this guy trying to be best friends with a person who has no short-term memory? Like, what does he get out of it? Then we learn that he is getting a lot of money out of it. But the end,
No, you get half.
You get half. The ending is amazing, though, because Leonard chooses to become this basically vigilante of his own design, where he learns the fact that he did kill the man who was responsible for the death of his wife.
And it wasn't
not the
Jimmy.
death of his
It
wife.
wasn't Jimmy.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it wasn't Jimmy. It was John G. And Teddy even shows him the photo of him pointing at his chest, so happy because he had just killed the man responsible.
I took that picture.
And yeah, he goes, I took that picture. He was there. And you can see that Teddy was like, he wanted that just as much as Leonard did. And he was so disappointed that the memory didn't stick and that the memory faded away from Leonard's mind. And then I think Teddy realized, I could use this guy to benefit myself. But what's really fascinating about Leonard is he keeps saying that Sammy Jenkins couldn't live because he didn't have purpose. And so Leonard says that he can make this life possible because he has purpose with routine repetition, and he has something he's working towards. So if he doesn't have something he's working towards, he will become like stuck in a mental institution, unable to live. And so he keeps creating new John G's to give himself the ability to live, because when he's investigating something, then he can survive, then he can live on his own, then he can just keep going day by hour, or memory by memory. And he just keep moving forward. And so he chooses to kill people that he knows in the moment aren't the right guy, but he knows he'll forget about it. And so in 15 minutes, even though right now I'm writing Teddy's license plate, I know he's not the responsible for the incident at my home, which took my memory away. I know he's not the guy, but in 15 minutes, I won't know that. In 15 minutes, I'll have this note and this license plate number.
And I get tattooed on my thigh.
Yeah, and he knows that. And he purposely tricks himself tricks his future self to investigate new people. It's a really fascinating decision that he keeps doing. He's probably done it several times, choosing to investigate someone that he knows isn't responsible for the attack on his wife, and yet he just wants to keep doing it, and he just becomes basically a monster in a lot of ways.
I agree. Yeah, it's a great character, and the editing for this movie is really exceptional because it's complex. If it's not edited well, it wouldn't have worked, and it's edited so precisely to make it extra interesting with the two storylines, one forwards, one backwards, but also the backward storyline. What they do so well with the editing is they basically bookend every scene of Leonard. It's kind of like a bunch of short stories of like a couple day period, and he'll go through a scene, and the scene plays out, and it's bookended with the opening of the end of that scene, which we saw at the opening of another scene. So we'll see the opening of one scene as one scene concludes, go backwards, and then we see the conclusion of that opening from the previous scene at the end of this new scene that we're seeing, which is going backwards. So it's really complex, but every scene is kind of bookended by something we'd seen before, which is really interesting.
For example, one scene opens with Pantoliano jumping on the windshield, saying hi. That's how one scene opens. And the next scene we see, Joe Pantoliano jumping on the windshield, is the final moment of that scene. So we get to see this is how the scene started first, and then we get to see how the scene ended next.
It's so interesting, and it creates really fun and engaging moments, especially, I think, like the shower one is great.
That's a great one.
He wakes up on the toilet with a bottle of whiskey in his hand. He's like, I don't feel drunk. And he's like, he smells himself. I stink. I need to take a shower. This is probably my hotel room. I'm safe. I'm going to take a shower. Then someone comes into the bathroom and he attacks them. And then we find out that was from the previous scene we just saw, the guy in the closet.
He tracked down and hid inside his hotel room.
And so we saw the ending of, this was the first scene of the previous moment that we saw, but now it's the finale of this new scene in this new little chapter.
He has great moments of humor in the film, especially in the middle part of the film. I think that's hilarious. It's such a funny scene because it's ridiculous, and it shows you how ridiculous this man is.
And when he's running, he's like, oh wait, where am I? I'm running. Yeah. Okay, I'm running. I must be chasing that guy. So he starts running towards him. Then he starts shooting at him. He's like, oh, never mind. He's chasing me.
And also he goes to kick down Dodd's door, and he kicks down the door of some innocent guy, knocks him out. And he's like, oh, this was room 9. I need to be at room 6. Like little things like that. Nolan in all of his movies has always had. He doesn't make comedic movies, but he always has good humor sprinkled out through all of his films.
Yeah, he's a funny guy.
Yeah. I think he seems to have a great sense of humor.
He definitely does. I mean, if you see interviews with him, he's very articulate and clearly an intelligent person, more intelligent than me for sure. But he's still
you're a smart guy, man.
He's very funny. And like the movies show that he's not like just creating comedic situations, just great lines that work so well. And also, speaking of the cast, we have to talk about Marvel star Guy Pearce. This is an ongoing joke, a new one. Marvel star, because he's in one Marvel movie. If you don't know, this is based off of Marvel star
Kate
Blanchett headline after she was
Tar.
Tar came out. Like Marvel star Kate Blanchett's new movie. She's in one Marvel movie, just like Guy Pearce in one Marvel movie. But anyways, Guy Pearce is exceptional in this role. He had to lose a ton of weight like real quick to play this part because Leonard's a really skinny guy, which makes sense for the character, but because you can assume that because he can't form short-term memories, he doesn't remember when the last time he ate was. He just has to go by, oh, I'm hungry, or like, did I eat today? Probably. I should be fine. So I think it really fits the character of being very skinny, as well as he puts on Jimmy's suit and the suit's too big for him and stuff like that. So I think it really works.
And Carrie-Anne Moss is terrific in this film as well as a supporting actress. She has some great dialogue. But her character is really complex. She is also, like Teddy, using Leonard, but also she helps Leonard, and she relates to Leonard, and she knows something's not right about him because she's driving Jimmy's Jaguar and wearing Jimmy's clothes, and she doesn't know what to think of him. But then she realizes this guy, he doesn't know what's going on, but I can use him to track down what happened to Jimmy. But she plays it with a great amount of charm, but also like this villainous quality, a great amount of dominance. Like that scene when she basically dismantles his entire life and just berates him and says like, I can say whatever I want to you and you're not going to remember it. She keeps calling him terrible names, but she made sure to get rid of all of the pens in the area and in her apartment, made sure that he didn't have his pen on him so he couldn't write down anything about the situation. It's a great scene. And then she goes outside and then waits like 5 minutes, then comes back in and he's like, "Oh, what happened to your face? Are you okay?" I think that character,
Jimmy Leonard,
Jimmy, Jesus Leonard. She steals every scene she's in. And I think she's a very talented actress, and it was a great addition to the cast to have her. She really brought a lot of three-dimensionality to that character.
And she's not a good person.
Yeah,
she's
not.
she's an evil person.
She helps drug dealer.
Yeah, she's using Leonard after she learns about his condition and taking advantage of them, and it's crazy because even like after that incident where she eventually lies to him, they sleep in the same bed together. It's terrible what she does to him, but everyone in this movie is basically using Leonard except for Bert, who runs the hotel manager.
He's using him.
Yeah, he's using him. His boss. Yeah, sorry.
He's in part.
He's got 2 hotel rooms checked out under his name because he forgot his key.
Yeah. Everyone uses Leonard. Everyone does.
Mark Boone Jr. He plays Bert. He's in how many Nolan movies? He's in all the Batman.
You don't
movies.
like falafel? He's only in Batman Begins.
No, I thought he was in Dark Knight.
No,
is he not?
No. Just Batman Begins.
But he fits the bill. So like I like how Nolan always works with similar actors and the same actors over and over again.
Yeah, he has I believe he had a huge role in Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
He had a huge storyline.
Yeah, he's big in that
became a
show.
big actor because of it. But I think he fits the bill for he's just a great addition to the cast because he feels like, oh, this is just a guy you know. It's not like some super chiseled actor. You know what I mean? It's important to have a great supporting cast surrounding these like
look like normal people.
Absolutely normal people. Because you know, Gary M. Moss and Guy Pearce are 10s. They're both hot as F.
Pantaleano's an 11.
Especially with that mustache. Ooh, that mustache.
Teddy. But Guy is incredible. He's such a great actor. He's so underrated. A great Australian actor. They produce just great talent out there. I don't know what it is.
Great acting.
Is it
stock.
The water or something? Who knows what it is? But he fits Teddy so well. He plays it so well. I know Brad Pitt almost took on this role, but it didn't work out because of scheduling conflicts. Thomas Jane was considered some other more popular actors.
Nolan actually has been a fan of Aaron Eckhart for a while.
He was up for it too.
He was his first choice, actually, Aaron Eckhart, but that didn't work out. But then he obviously cast him as Harvey Dent.
But Guy Pearce, he said he was most impressed with in terms of auditions, in terms of he really liked the quality that Guy Pearce brought to the movie of not being a very famous person at the time. And, you know, this one got him a great career in Hollywood for sure. He's a very talented guy. But, you know, this is my favorite Guy Pearce role. I think it's his most memorable. And Leonard is just he's so likable at the same time as just the ambiguity and mystery behind him. Even when you find out he's just he's not a bad person, but he's become a villain, almost kind of a soulless, just vigilante killer stuck in this loop. He's a murderer, you know? And that's why Tay says, "You're not a murderer. That's why you're so good at it." Because he's not. That's what he's turned into. Leonard is this new persona, this new identity. Sammy Jenkins is the one he left behind.
And you also have to understand that every time every time he loses his memory, which can be like within 5 minutes or within an hour, depending on the situation, the first thing he remembers is his wife bleeding on the floor of the bathroom unconscious, thinking she's dead. That's the everything. Every time a new memory begins forming, that's the last thing he remembers. And so you can understand that would be highly motivational for him, wanting to get vengeance, wanting to get revenge. And even when he learns that he did get his revenge, it's still not good enough because he knows he's going to forget that. And he kind of is like not even a person anymore. He's just like, he's like a ghost in a lot of ways, where he's just moving through life completely without forming anything. He can't have a life. He can't have anything, but all he can have is his investigation. And so I think he just never wants to let go of investigating.
Now, how does Leonard, who cannot form short-term memories, know all this information about Sammy Jenkins when he was being investigated by the insurance claims company and the investigator for them? How does he have these memories of Sammy failing tests, failing the shock treatment tests with the objects, the insulin situation with his wife? Obviously, it's because Leonard has this giant file. He has this giant file of medical information of Sammy Jenkins, and he's just taken on the persona that wasn't me. That was somebody I was investigating until my injury.
And it's the 15 pages missing from the police report.
So yeah, but exactly that's how Leonard can process the information every day that, oh, I was investigating Sammy Jenkins. Remember Sammy Jenkins? he was going through this. He's the one that accidentally killed his wife with the insulin. That wasn't me until later on. So I think that's maybe a loophole that people think of, like, how does he know all these memories of Sammy Jankis and who Sammy Jankis was? And then obviously he was Sammy Jankis, which was proved in the movie with the frame of Leonard sitting in that chair.
And also, like, there's great little shots. Like, there's a shot of his wife sitting on the bed, and at first we see he pinches her thigh, and she's like, stop it. But then we see the truth of him giving her insulin shot on her thigh. And so it's like the memories are there, but they've been changed because they're unreliable. Just like how Leonard tells Teddy memories, you can't trust them. You can only trust the facts and investigation and the notes. His own memories are completely unreliable.
Even the memories he has of his wife. It's so ironic.
Yeah, he says the color of a car can change, and it's just like whether there's a needle in his hand or not can change.
It's really complex and really clever and really well thought out, this script and the story. It's so well written. I think it might be Nolan's best script. It's up there for sure.
It's so unique.
In terms of his, like, where do you rank it for your Nolan movies?
Well, what's interesting about this is, especially with great filmmakers, because I love all of his movies, and I really love this movie, but it's a lot of great filmmakers, they have probably their best, if not one of their best movies very early in their filmography. You know, you get PTA with Boogie Nights, you get Tarantino with Pulp Fiction, you get Spielberg with Jaws, you get Scorsese with Taxi Driver. You know, these are all-time movies in their filmographies that happened very, very early in their career. And this is his second feature. But ironically, what makes him a different, and I think Wes Anderson is pretty similar, where I think his movies get better every time he makes a movie. Whereas Wes Anderson, I think the peak of his career so far was Grand Budapest, and that was like his 8th movie. And with Nolan, I think that most of his filmography I would prefer over this film. Even though I really love this film, if I had to rank his movies, I'd actually put it quite low on the list. But it is, you could say, one of his most original ideas and his most impressive screenplay. But in terms of a movie, like, I love his other movies more, but I do really love this movie. It's just hard, but I think it's different from those other filmmakers where they had like it's like a musician having their best album in like their first or second releases.
It's usually an easier choice to make.
But like Wes Anderson, I think you can really compare to him where his movies get better as time goes on. Yeah, and Fincher's similar as well, where, you know, Alien 3 obviously isn't his best movie, but like, well, actually, I mean, Fight
Club 7
might be his best movie. So 7, okay, Fincher falls into the category of like of those other great directors.
No, yeah, I agree. And like Tommy Wiseau, one of those great early hits. I mean, The Room. Come on, this is Chris Nolan's The Room.
But like, you could say Terminator 2 is James Cameron's best movie.
You could,
and it's his second. Even Terminator could be one of his best movies. Aliens, and these are very early in his career.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's hard to rank Nolan's movies. He's made 10 movies. So he's made Following won't count because there's such a low budget and just independent film. Then Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins, The Prestige, The Dark Knight Rises, Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet. So he's made 10 movies, about to be 11 with the Oppenheimer. I love every single one of them. I even like Following. It's a great movie. I mean, when you're trying to rank like even a top 5, like you gotta put Interstellar in there. You gotta put Inception. You gotta put Dark Knight. You gotta put, for me, Batman Begins. Dunkirk's incredible. I mean,
The Prestige.
The Prestige is incredible. I love The Prestige.
I fucking love The Prestige.
Did I put The Prestige on my list?
You didn't.
So 11. So he's made.
How dare you?
I know. I love The Prestige. He's made 11 movies. He slipped that one in between Godfather and Godfather Part 2, didn't he?
He slipped that between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
Batman Begins and Dark Knight, which is crazy. So he's made so many great movies. It's almost impossible to make like a top 5 list for me with Nolan because.
Yeah. But so you see what I mean, where he improves as time goes on.
True, but still, there was something to Nolan's filmmaking when he was working with lower budgets, I think, compared to, obviously, I love his big budget movies. Tenet was like a $250 million production. It was awesome. It was so cool. Interstellar was a huge production. I love that. But still, when you go back to like Memento and The Prestige, even Insomnia, even Batman Begins is a smaller budget compared to his recent films he's been making. I mean, Oppenheimer's going up to like $250 million budget, $300 million budget as well. There's something to his filmmaking process and storytelling with the smaller budgets. I think The Prestige is the best example where he's working with like $40 or $50 million, something like that. And it's just, the storytelling is different. He's more dependent on story structure and storytelling versus great sequences, which are still really cool. Like,
you don't need action sequences with a small
when
budget.
you think of Inception, you think of the set pieces and the action moments, not necessarily the structure of the movie.
You think of like the scale of the visuals.
and the concept.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating and incredible, and I love Inception. But there's something about like Memento and The Prestige where he's operating with much smaller budgets, and the story is supreme versus spectacle being kind of half of his style.
You could argue that The Prestige is his best movie.
It could be.
That's an argument that could be made.
I love that movie. It's so
me
good.
too. And then with Dunkirk, it's just basically all just visual action, not just action, but like, you know, just physical action things happening. It's not so much story as it is sequences. But it's so hard to rank his filmography, and I don't even like to do it. But I don't know, man. I love all of his movies so much, and it's hard to put Memento over a lot of them for me.
Screenplay wise, it's one of his best.
Yeah.
It's a top 5 screenplay in his filmography for sure. It's the only one he's been Oscar nominated for. He still doesn't have a Best Director nomination, which is wild to me. Absolutely insane.
It's
Fucking,
crazy.
like, what the fuck?
No, he got director for
Dunkirk. I'm sorry. Okay, you're right.
but that was his first director nom.
yeah, 2017. That's a long time.
Dude makes Inception, The Dark Knight, and Interstellar, no nominations. Isn't that wild?
It's nuts.
It's insane.
Nuts. He made 9 movies by the time he got nominated for Best Director, which is crazy. There's a lot of directors out there, and you know, it depends on the year, I guess. But Memento is a really brilliant film. It's so well liked. I don't know anyone who doesn't love this movie. 8.4 on IMDb. That's huge with 1.2 million ratings. 1.2 million ratings. So many movies come out every year. Everyone's obsessed with the IMDb score, but it's based off like 30,000 ratings, 100,000 ratings. But like movies like Memento, they stand the test of time because for 20 years, people have been rating this movie. 1.2 million. That's a ton.
And it was
so many people.
And I feel like it was more authentic ratings. Like, oh, I did really like it. You're not just like review bombing me because you like the studio.
Yeah, So basically, now with the review bombing with so many movies, just because you like the movie, you give it a 10, or just because you didn't like it, you give it a 1, which is crazy. It's absurd to me.
It's just reviews have been pretty unreliable nowadays, and but like this is when, you know, if it was bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. And you could really trust the IMDb rating.
But it got 3s, 4s, sure.
Yeah.
But the 8s and 9s and 10s.
But yeah, because like nowadays, I saw reviews of recent movies where people like, it was messy and it was kind of muddled, but it's still a 9 out of 10. It's like, how do you give it a 9 out of 10 if you just said it was messy? What? That makes no sense. Give it a 7.
Yeah, I saw one. It was a mess of a movie, but 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or DC's back. 10 out of 10. F Marvel 1 out of 10. Screw Marvel 1 out of 10.
This isn't Tolkien 1 out of 10.
Yeah, it's just getting ridiculous
silly.
now. But this is I think when there's a million ratings of a movie, you can really trust it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because there aren't a million review bombers. There's like 100.
Yeah, exactly. But it can change the rating big time. But this movie's special because there's nothing like it. There's no other movie that is even in the same realm of what this movie does. And I think that's something really commendable for the millions of films that have been made globally. Like, there's nothing like this.
A wildly original character, too, with this guy who can't form short-term memories, is just covered in tattoos that he has to discover the truth that his wife was murdered by some guy named John G. And he's just following this breadcrumb trail of clues that he's left himself with Polaroid photographs and tattoo facts that he believes are facts, and the subjective reality that he creates that pushes him forward on his mystery and his crime-solving spree, which turns into, if you think about it, he's just in an endless loop. So even the concept of not just going forwards and backwards in time with the story structure, but Leonard traps himself in a loop.
And you could say part of the reason for the motivation of that is he never feels the catharsis of resolution and the relief of finalizing his investigation. So that's why because he can never, even though he did it, he doesn't remember the catharsis. He doesn't remember it being solved. And so why not just keep going?
And he refuses to believe the fact that he's the one that caused his wife's death with the insulin.
Yeah.
He was the one with the memory problem. He was Sammy Jacobs.
Yeah, he constantly wants to blame someone else.
Exactly. He doesn't want to believe it anymore. It's such a great character.
I have some great fun facts if you want to hear them.
I would love to hear some fun facts.
In the limited edition DVD, it allows the movie to be watched in the exact chronological order of the events of the film. However, the version of this movie is difficult to find on the DVD. The user must answer several questions and even solve a puzzle in order to
We have the
enable
DVD.
it. Yeah, it was
It's
like
cool.
a book.
It's a file case that's like that you can open up, like a blue file, and there's like different medical records from Leonard inside of it, and all sorts of like secret little Easter eggs and the menus and stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a cool DVD. During Teddy's line, "You don't have a clue, you freak!" Director Christopher Nolan felt that Joe Pantoliano did not quite nail the end of this line, so he decided to re-record the last two words to his liking, delivering them himself. Therefore, in the final film, the words "you freak," as we hear them, are actually being said not by actor Joe Pantoliano, but by Nolan impersonating Pantoliano's voice.
It's actually not the only time he's done ADR work for his movies. In Tenet, he's the one that does like the like the breathing, the sequences of going backwards and reverse.
Mm-hmm. To reiterate how memory changes things, some overlapping shots between the loops use different takes of the same scenes, while others use the exact same shot to show how memory can change based on your interpretation of it. The blood coming out of Leonard's head in the basement in the bathroom scene when he is hit in the head by his wife's attackers was Guy Pearce's idea as well. Chris Nolan thought it would be a bit too much to show the blood, but then he decided that after seeing it shot on film, it felt like his mind was leaking out, and it felt like the end of his past self.
It's a great
Next
metaphor.
up, Christopher Nolan's white Honda Civic can actually be seen parked next to Leonard Shelby's Jaguar at the motel. Teddy's number is 555-0134. This is the exact same phone number as Marla Singer in Fight Club.
And tons of other movies have used this number for characters. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like a recurring trend for filmmakers.
Those are all cool facts.
All right, well, that wraps our episode on Memento. We really
What do we talk about?
We should edit this in backwards and reverse it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. If you're in America, hope you're having a wonderful holiday with your family and friends and loved ones. Safe travels. If you're not in America, hope you're having a great normal day, normal Thursday, and great weekend.
Don't be too jealous.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost Podcast was executive produced by our chosen one patrons: Luke Exelston, Tyler McFly, Darren Singleton, Anthony DeMeo, John A. Graz, Becca Keene, Cody Moen, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Cam. Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, notifications for sure. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out this other content we have on our YouTube channel.